Hey, it's Jordan with TYT Network. I am here in New York, and I have the wonderful state of Utah represented in front of me. Among three leaders over there, I have Julianne Waters, Robin Ballard, and Rob Walton. And there's some interesting things going on that you guys are a part of, which is trying to essentially propel the superdelegates from Utah who where Bernie Sanders won very convincingly, pretty much a landslide, to vote with the will of the people. We saw that Maine was one of the states that essentially voted to abolish superdelegates, and now you guys are trying to compel your superdelegates to follow the will of the people. So explain your roles. Some of you are state-level delegates, why it is you felt this was important to bring up, and what are the next steps in terms of the committee meeting and all that?
Okay, I'll start, and again, we appreciate being here with you, Jordan. We've worked really hard here in Utah to make sure that Bernie got the maximum support that he could from our state. And what has happened along the way is the superdelegates are hindering that process by not voting for the will of along with the will of the people. Now, what Maine has done is admirable, but it does not take effect until the next election cycle. And we've come up with what we think is a solution to that would actually take effect this election cycle so that Bernie could appreciate 2 more superdelegate votes from Utah. Basically, we want to be very clear on the fact that we're not being punitive to we're not mandating the way the superdelegates should vote. We can't possibly do that. We're just simply holding them accountable to the people of Utah to represent the voters of our state and the democratic values that are outlined in our party constitution. We have a central committee meeting coming up on Tuesday, May 31st, 6 o'clock at the Marmalade Library in Salt Lake City. We'd love to have all Bernie supporters there. And for more details, just go to Facebook, the Utah for Bernie Sanders page.
What exactly are you calling for from the superdelegates? You said this is essentially 2 superdelegates. What are you requesting of them, and what are the repercussions you're calling for if they don't follow through?
Well, we were able to pass a resolution at the Salt Lake County Convention that was a non-binding resolution statement from that body saying that they should follow the popular will and vote for Bernie Sanders, given there was an 80% majority. This particular bylaw that we could pass at the state level would create some consequences for a superdelegate who doesn't choose to follow the majority vote. Such a person could not be on the executive committee of the state party, for example, and would be denied party resources if they chose to take an act so undemocratic and counter to the values expressed in our state party constitution.
You're asking that the superdelegates all follow the will of the people, and if they don't, they wouldn't be able to hold positions on the Central Committee, or excuse me, if I'm correct, they would have to resign their positions, is what I read, and not be able to hold future positions. Is that correct?
So we need it to be clear that they would resign from the executive.
We've seen superdelegates as an issue, not just in Utah, but other states. Bernie wins Wisconsin by 12 points, I believe. Bernie wins West Virginia by a lot, and Rhode Island by a lot. Overwhelmingly, the superdelegates vote for Hillary Clinton, or excuse me, they haven't voted yet. They vote at the convention. But the naysayers and the Democratic Party establishment say this has been the way it's been done way before Bernie Sanders. The superdelegates have never, swayed the election one way or the other. So, devil's advocate, why is it so important to get superdelegates to follow the will of Utah's people if it's not going to ultimately put Bernie over the finish line?
We understand that conventional argument, but if you've read, for example, the recent article, Bill Moyer's article, you can actually turn that argument on its head and say that, in fact, only the superdelegates decide who is going to be president of the United States, and in fact, or at least the nominee for the Democratic Party, and that's been the intention all along. Neither Hillary Clinton nor Bernie Sanders will reach the amount of delegates needed without superdelegates. And in fact, you can sort of say that these primaries are almost a farce. That we've had this parade around the country and all of this going on, and really it's going to come down to 700 party leaders who are going to decide who's going to become the party nominee. And we'd really like to talk about some of the background that led up to this, about what happened in Utah. I mean, we had some 80% vote for Bernie Sanders here. No one talks about what happened in Utah because it was the same day as the Arizona primary, and their problems were so overwhelming, and Bernie won so overwhelmingly here in Utah, people didn't really talk about it. But we had, real problems here. People had to stand in line for 3 or 4 hours at night in the cold. It was winter here in Utah still. Thousands of people couldn't wait it out and vote. Lots of people stood in line for hours and still couldn't vote. And there's a good argument to be made, Jordan, that if there wasn't this institutionalized voter suppression in place here, that Bernie would have got a clean sweep, Vermont-style clean sweep in Utah, and Hillary would have had no delegates at all. Now, we want to be clear here. We're not interested in beating up on state party officials in Utah that have held down this party in the most Republican state of the union for decades. It's been the bastard stepchild of the Democratic Party for forever. But we need to do better. That can't happen again. Whether the Democratic Party is running these elections or the state is running them, and the line right now is to blame the GOP-controlled state legislature for not funding a state-run primary during the presidential preference poll. And there's some truth to that, but we as Democrats need to be responsible for our own elections, and we can't allow what happened here in Salt Lake City in these caucuses to happen again.
Yeah, I'd like to touch on that voter suppression because we've heard a lot about Arizona, New York, Pennsylvania, California. Bernie won, like you said, by almost 80%, so most people wouldn't think there was voter suppression. What went on there?
I volunteered at my local caucus here in Salt Lake. And prior to caucus, I talked to my ledge chair and said, we need to expect large crowds tonight because we've been watching it all over the country. And she literally said to me, oh no, we live in an aging area. We're not going to have crowds. So people started lining up 2 hours before. It was mayhem. We ran out of ballots. I had to go to a FedEx store and print 2,500 more ballots. When I was coming back with the ballots, people were leaving the school. They said, we're not going to wait. We don't want to vote anymore. They were very discouraged, and I wish I would have had the mindset to get their names, but I didn't. Anyway, at a certain point, when it looked like we were not going to get out of there until 3 o'clock in the morning, our local Dem office said to just hand out ballots to everybody. Stop the verification process and just hand out ballots, let them vote, get them vote, which sounded really good, except for they were doing it so quickly. A lot of these people were brand new voters, and so they didn't fill their form out correctly. In other words, a lot of them left their birth date off. I volunteered in the Dem office after caucus, helping handle all of these ballots for the 2.5 to 3 weeks after caucus, and they were literally casting those votes away because they did not have a birth date. I tried to explain this was a free-for-all, that we can't hold people's feet to the fire on something like that when we're literally throwing ballots in the air saying, fill them out and go, fill them out and go. So, a lot of the new voters that voted, if they knew the facts, their votes weren't even counted.
What's interesting to me in terms of the superdelegates, not just in Utah, but around the country, it's not so much about getting 2 extra superdelegates, because that, if you did that in every state, Hillary Clinton would still have an advantage. It's more about the impression that the whole contest was kind of tilted from the beginning against Senator Sanders. And the fact that you had such a large number of these superdelegates, give their vote to Hillary Clinton before he even announced. So it's kind of like, and let me finish. The media, as the Young Turks has pointed out, continuing to present the vote total, including superdelegates.
Counting the superdelegates is almost malicious journalism, right? I mean, I can't believe that all of those reporters don't know that superdelegates changed their votes, because it wasn't like 1968 when they last did that, or 1868. It was 2008 when they switched their votes.
Which to someone who's not a definite voter might think, oh, he's down 700 delegates. Why should I bother voting? So outside of Utah, do you think that the superdelegate system needs reforms past this primary, preferably for this primary, but do you think there needs to be reforms where maybe there's less superdelegates, maybe they don't decide who they're going to vote for, or they don't actually come out with who they're supporting until the convention? What would you like to see to make this more democratic and transparent?
I personally would like to see the superdelegates go away. I don't think it's democratic at all. And we don't vote on who the superdelegates are. They're simply appointed by virtue of second. And our local Democratic chair, who is a very, very honorable man, named Keith Curran, his slant on it is that he would like to be a delegate, but he doesn't get to go to his own caucus because he's running the party. And so that's the only way that he could possibly be a delegate. And I get that, but by the same token, you know, I'm a national delegate for Missouri, and I had to work really hard to get that position. And I'm not an elected official, so at the very least, if they are going to be super delegates representing their area, their state, their people, then they, in my opinion, should go with the will of the people. Ideally, I'd love to see super delegates go away.
And do you guys feel that the superdelegate system is just fundamentally opens up the possibility of quid pro quo, meaning most of these people are elected officials? If you have a Hillary Clinton candidate who, you know, for lack of a better word, isn't calling for radical change, versus a Bernie Sanders who's essentially crapping on them and the way they do business. I'm on the internet, I could say crapping. It's essentially, of course, they're going to go with the establishment candidate, thus putting their thumb on the system.
I think you kind of nailed it. You nailed it on the head, Jordan. There are two elements to the superdelegates. One aspect is that you have elected officials who are, put in a situation where they don't have to run against sort of rank and file neighborhood Democrats that don't have the name recognition, and there's maybe something to be said for that. The problematic part is this unlimited discretion as to who they get to vote for. If we're going to have an election, and talking to some of the handful of Hillary supporters in this state, sometimes I wonder if they think we should have elections at all. If someone wins by 80%, does that mean anything to anybody? Maybe we should have these people as delegates in the national convention. Maybe there's value in that, but this unbridled discretion is problematic.
One of you, correct me if I'm wrong, one of you was rejected as a delegate, or there was something that happened where you were turned away. I might be botching the description, but it looks like it was you. Can you explain what happened?
So I think the situation that you're talking about